Hello and welcome to ADHD History, the show where we take large historical concepts and break them down in just a few minutes. By ADHDers, for ADHDers. The topic we're going to be talking about today is barbarians. Those scourges of civilization, destroyers of cities, beasts from beyond the walls. Every great civilization from Rome to the Han to the USA have faced barbarians at the gate who threaten to tear down all they have worked to build. Or did they? Throughout the historical record, there's always been this common thread of someone outside, some scary other people who always are there, ready to raid and pillage, you can threaten your children with. You can say, hey, little Timmy, don't cross the river, or the barbarians on the other side of the river will get you. But who are these people? Do they really exist just to raid and threaten civilization? I think a really good example of this is the Vikings, which, as you can see, I'm dressed as a pop culture version of, and also the word Vikings is somewhat problematic because we don't really know where it originates and what it means. It tends to refer specifically to the raiders. We don't know if it comes from the Norse word vik or from the region in Scandinavia called Viken, or somewhere else. But there's not really a good word for these people. People like to say Norsemen, but that, in the words of Neil Price, seems to exclude not only Swedes and Danes, but also women. So, the Vikings. They live in Scandinavia, and I'm not going to say that they didn't invade the Anglo-Saxons, and they didn't carry out raids, but they also did a lot of other stuff. They had their own civilization. They did their own practices, and a lot of their subsistence was also farming, but that's not the front of them that the Europeans saw. They saw merely the boat people who came across this impassable borderland, the North Sea. And I'll talk a little bit more about borderlands in a minute, but they have their own boogeymen in their own borderlands back up north, and they have their own art and culture and their own music and poetry. And yes, they raid, but they also do trading and stuff, but that's the thing, right? The Anglo-Saxons, much like the Vikings, they have their own traditions of poetry and music and art, and their own traditions of the systems in which they live, the economics of their society, and they also carry out raids and invasions. So why do we remember the Vikings as the raiders and the Anglo-Saxons as the good Christian defenders who are merely protecting themselves from this alien, monstrous invasion from across the sea? Of course, I already answered this question. It's because the Anglo-Saxons have a written history and the Vikings do not. Now, so as we get into more modern history, the way that this technique of robbing the other people, the peripheral people who do not have written histories, of their oral history and denying it to them becomes a colonial mechanism. In the US, the Euro-Americans see the Native Americans as these, people who are without history. They tend to infantilize them. It's very similar to the way that the Europeans treat Africans and Middle Easterners and Central Asians, looking at them in this way. And Edward Said of Orientalism, who talks a lot about both the robbing of the history and the infantilization of these people, his book Orientalism, definitely you need to read if you are interested in any kind of post-colonial study at all. But so this is used as a justification to destroy their cultures and to kill a lot of people and enslave a lot of people, as the agrarian civilizations, the sedentary civilizations who become industrial, of course, end up dominating the world. And so knowing this modern history of colonialism, we really have to look back at history and remember every time we read about, the Huns destroying everything in the Roman Empire, Genghis Khan in Central Asia piling up pyramids of skulls, we have to remember that there is this continuous bias against the people of the borderlands, of the the deserts and the mountains and the steppes and the oceans, the people who come from the limits of where people can do proper agrarianism and where people can do industrial societies. And we just really need to bear that in mind when we look at all of history from the very first state formations. Now, this topic I can ramble about for quite a while, and I kind of avoided in this video going into really specific examples because there are a lot. And I'm thinking that that is going to become a series on this channel where I take every now and then, I'll pick a specific narrative about a specific group of barbarians, and I will talk about things from their side. There's a lot of material culture and there's a lot of kind of recovery of oral traditions that's been happening in new studies of history that I will be using, so I think that should be a lot of fun. Yeah, drop a comment if you have any particular barbarian group you want to hear about. And that should be about all I have to say for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you would be so kind as to click the buttons. Now, someone asked me because they didn't know which buttons. The subscribe button, the like button, and the little bell icon next to the subscribe button will make it so you are notified when I drop a new video. So, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you next week.